everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to today's webinar, Enhance Your Website Easily with the ASP.NET Image Slider, presented by DevExpress ASP.NET Product Manager Mehul Harry. In this webinar, you'll see how to use the new DevExpress ASP.NET Image Slider control to display images and navigate between them. Plus, learn how to make your website more dynamic by adding a client-side timer to automatically scroll the images for you. I will now hand things over to Mehul Harry.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you everyone for joining today. Because today we're going to take a look at how to enhance your website easily with the ASP.NET Image Slider. Now, for those of you who have maybe seen the Image Slider in the latest DevExpress release, you're going to see a very interesting use case scenario because we're going to apply the Image Slider to something you can actually use today. So, first of all, I am Mehul Harry. I'm the Web Product Manager here at DevExpress. You can reach me by emailing me at mehul@devexpress.com. I'm also on Twitter, and if you put in at Mehul Harry on Twitter, and I'll have all this information at the end, and there'll be a slide that presents that as well. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the Image Slider control and how to use it kind of like a banner, but there's another term that's more widely used in the industry nowadays. And we're also going to take a look at not just using the image slider, but we're also going to take a look at the client-side JavaScript aspect of many of the DevExpress ASP.NET controls. Not a lot of people are aware that there's a great client-side model available on all the DevExpress ASP.NET products, and they're really quite powerful in terms of events and functioning that you can do with it. They can interact with other client-side libraries like JavaScript, jQuery, and so forth. Even though they're server-side controls, they present this client-side object model that lets you do certain things that are necessary and better on the client side. All right, so let's get started. This is me. There's my email, mehul@devexpress.com, and like I said, we're going to take a look at this specific example. So, if you've ever installed our stuff, or if you ever looked at devexpress.com and said, hey, let me take a look at some of their controls and some of these fantastic things that are supposed to be beautiful and powerful, you would have landed here. Now, these are our training demos. The way you can reach these demos is simply by going to devexpress.com, and there's a thing that says try on the main menu here. And the product demos, these are some of the full-size demos. And if you click on training demos, you'll land here. And if you click on ASP.NET demos, we also have MVC and SharePoint demos, but if you click on ASP.NET demos, you'll land here. And so from here, if you click navigation, this will take you into a particular set. So we have everything from reporting, charting, grids, schedulers, gauges, everything, you name it. You can build full, complete websites with the amount of over, 90 plus controls that we offer for ASP.NET. So specifically today, we're going to take a look at this layout. Now, this is an interesting layout because it's very common nowadays on websites to present your end users with information and guidance about what you want to direct their attention to. So in this case, this is the ASP Experience demos. This is our navigation and data representation control suite. It's got a lot of controls, everything from a file manager to a docking suite to the new image slider. So what I want to do today is take a look at this specifically. Now, this is a banner. Now, if you remember the good old days of websites, I've been around for like 20 plus years now, almost 20 years. But banners have been around since the beginning, and banners used to be used only for presenting advertisements, and they work. But nowadays, what's happened is that we went away because obviously the banner ads themselves aren't always that popular. But the notion that they help bring attention to something because they're right square in the middle and in the front is very important, and it's a way to guide our attention. So when we land on a page like this, our eyes are directly our eyes and focus is directed here into the center section, and I can read. Okay, there's information here. There's some links that I can click on and so forth, and from there I might gaze my attention down here to these other images. Or if I'm looking to find something specific, I may go over to the menu and say, oh yeah, I'm looking for a cloud control or a headline control. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, this is nice, but it's kind of static. It doesn't really tell me anything. So what we want to do is instead use what's called nowadays a hero graphic. Now, if you're new to this term, don't worry. It's actually quite popular in the web design circles, and it's a specific type of banner image. It's larger, prominently placed on a web page, generally front and center, and it presents your users with the most important content. And it can have image and text, can be static or dynamic, with a rotating list of images or topics. And that's what we're going to do today. So where can you see an example of this? Well, DevExpress.com. When you land here, you're presented with a hero graphic, and it's got a rotating set of images. Now, this one is presenting you with all sorts of information about the beautiful things that DevExpress has been working on that's available to you. It's got links we can click on. But what's interesting is if I just let this site sit here by itself, it's going to automatically cycle through this content. It's dynamic, it's engaging. It invites me as a user, as a visitor to the site, to take action. And that's what we want to be able to do to your websites. And this is not just among DevExpress. This is common in a lot. So if you go to Microsoft.com, you're presented with a similar image hero graphic. So here, we can click through, or if we leave it alone, it'll sit there and also cycle through, and we're also presented with a little overlay here that has some information and some links. And just another example here is, this is Apple's iPhone site. Now here, they tend to go for a slightly bigger hero graphic. They're really big on graphics. So here, but you can see that it's sitting there cycling through, telling you, hey, here's what's interesting about this product. I want to tell you about the iPhone, why it's fast, etc., etc. So every one of these examples says, here's my most relevant content that I want to present you, the visitor, with. And that's what we're going to do here. So the most relevant content on this demo is the information here, but I also want to direct people's attention to the specific feature demos. So we've chosen 4, the file manager, the form layout, the image slider, and the docking suite as the 4 feature demos, because there's a lot in the suite that we can try to present. But these 4 tend to be some amazing controls. They're all really amazing, but these specifically can be used for some very nice things. So what I want to do is I want to take you to one of these, put them as a dynamic rotating content here, and then remove this bit here. So remove the static context here. So let's just dive right into it. Now, to do that, we're going to use this image slider. So let's just take a quick look at this. Now, what's interesting about this image slider is it makes your life so much easier when you want to do something like this, when you decide and say, yeah, I want to do this element. How do I do that? Now, you might be asking yourself, well, these look like public sites. You know, what if I don't have a public site or internal site? I believe this is still very relevant, because this is not just about presenting data. It's also about navigation. Because what we're doing here is we're going to take this metaphor that says, here's some information over here that people can use to navigate from, and we're going to put it in one area. So it's a very interesting way where you can present your end users with, let's say, certain stats or certain charts or graphs or whatever you need to present them with, and put it right front and center. And then if they click on it, you can take them to a more detailed page. So the image slider is going to let us do that. So this image slider, if you've not seen it before, is a new control. Now, what's interesting about it is not only are you able to present images on it, but using either your mouse, or if this was running on a touch device, you can use the finger. It's touch friendly as well. It's got these nice slide animations. It presents the images in a beautiful layout, and it also gives you this thumbnail slider at the bottom. Now, what's great is you can just present it a set of images, and you don't actually have to have these thumbnails, and it will generate these thumbnails for you on the fly. It's a great control, and you saw as I scrolled over, it went and dynamically grabbed that content. So it's got Ajax features built right in. Nothing is being updated. And it's got a lot of great features built into it as well. So today, specifically, we're going to take a look at this approach. Now, this is the banner sample. This says you can use the image slider as a banner. And that's exactly what I want to do. In fact, I love this layout. I've got the little overlay here that has a link built in. I can set the text on it. I've got these nice little ellipsis buttons that are built into the image slider as well. I can also slide over, and it's got the right size. So let's do that. And and as I mentioned, we're also going to take a look at its client-side functionality. So there's a lot of client-side features. In this case, we're using a timer which automatically scrolls these images. So I'm going to show you all of that today. All right. So let's first of all go back to this page. Now, this demo, as with all the other demos, is available when you download and install DevExpress products. So we give you the full source code because we want you to experience it. We want you to play with it. If you like something, take it. That's exactly what we make these demos for. I mean, that's our job, to help inspire you. Then feel free, by all means, please take the content, run with it, enjoy it, and share it with us. You know, if you're on the social networks, on our Facebook or something, feel free to post an image and let us know what you love about it. So as Visual Studio starts up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the demos. Now, you can find all of our demos locally. So you can find all of our demos locally. When you first install DevExpress, you'll see that it goes into program files, and there's the regular folders, but demos are not installed there. The demos are actually installed in a folder. Now, you may have your user folder. Now, I'm running Windows 8, and it creates these user folders under C users. But we don't put the demos under your username. We put them under public. And the reason is, when you run Visual Studio, it runs a little version of IIS called the ASP.NET Development Server. And that little development server doesn't have rights to your particular user folder. It has access to this public folder. So that's why we put them there. So what I usually do is I grab, when I get to public documents, I grab this and I put a little shortcut under my favorites. And so next time I can just click this and then navigate to it easily. All right, so in this DExperience folder, I've got all the different types of demos that we have available to you. So under ASP.NET, I can find the ASP experience. So here I've got experience and I've got a copy of it as well. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I've been playing around with this demo, so I'm just going to get rid of that version. And I've got a little backup copy, which is always nice to have around. And we'll just rename it. All right, so let's just now, this demo is quite big. It's got a lot of images, it's got a lot of files, and as we're going to see, the structure is nicely laid out already for us. And so one of my key goals of this demo was I wanted to really show you how easy it was to play around with these demos. So if we go into this ASP Experience folder, typically you'll find that there's two versions, VB and CS. Now, in this case, I'm only going to work with the C# version. Now, in the C# version, I'm just more comfortable with it, but you can use either. They're the exact same demos or the exact same look. It's just the code behind it, so I've written in C# or VB. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the ASP Experience demos. So in Visual Studio, I'll go in, I'll open the ASP Experience demos, scroll down, and I'll select it. All right, so this is the full file. Now, obviously, it's a lot bigger. So, as I mentioned, the very first thing I like to do whenever I open an existing file is I always like to make sure I build it. Now, rather than build this, I'm just going to run it, make sure that it is going to work the way we expect it. Now, because these demos are installed from installer, right out of the bat, they should be working because this is the exact demos we link to when we're actually when you run it from our demo center. So as we see, this is running from localhost, and it's the exact same demo as the one we see online. So because we're going to be replacing this piece here, what I'm going to do is I'm using Chrome, but you can use almost any tool you prefer. But what I'll do is I'll right-click on here because what I want to do is I want to find out what this element is. So I'll right-click here and I'll select Inspect Element. Now here, it tells me this is the intro banner. Now here, as I move my mouse up and down here in this tree of the source, Chrome is telling me what each one of these items is. So what I want to do is I want to go find this intro banner and remove all that content in there and replace it with the image slider. Okay, so let's do that. So we'll open up the Site Master again, and I'll hit Control-I and type in intro banner, and it takes me right to this particular item. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this intro banner altogether. I'm also going to remove the little shadow around it, and we're going to, in fact, I don't even really want that div. What I want to do is I just want to drop a image slider here. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up our toolbox, and in the toolbox you'll find all the different DevExpress controls after you have run the installation. Now under DX 12.2, navigation and layout, you'll find the image slider. So now all of the DevExpress products are called start with ASPX to dictate that the control is the ASP.NET product. So in the ASPX image slider, I can double click this, or I can drag and drop it on here. I'm just going to double click because I had the cursor where I wanted it, and now I can modify this. So what's great about the new Visual Studio is they've added this functionality where I can actually access the smart tag right from the source view. So I don't have to go to the design view. So I can click the little smart tag, excuse me, and I can get that same set of tasks that's available from the design view. So here I can choose items, I can create the specific items, and from here I can define certain images that I want to link to. Now, if in this case, if I wanted to, and just for the a little demonstration, I'm going to link to a couple of those images from the demo of the image slider. Now here I've set an image, I can give it a name, I can give it a URL if I want to navigate to it, a thumbnail URL if I have a thumbnail, and if I don't, it'll generate one for me, and any text that I want. So let's just click OK for now, and now let me run it. I want to make sure that as I go along that I am actually able to keep track of what's going on. So now right away what we did was we were able to replace that panel. Now I created 4 items, and it's saying, well, why are these keep spinning? Well, because I didn't actually specify any images for them. So right away it's showing me one image. But what you see here is that the image was a widescreen image, and I didn't really specify, I didn't really take care of setting the right size and portion. So we're going to do that in just a second. Now, the first thing here is, though, that this setup, it tells me right away that I'm able to replace that item that was just standard text, and I've got right away an image slider, and it's got the capabilities. I can drop some images in here. So what I want to do, let's close out these items here, is first of all, I'm going to take some care, remove this, and then we're going to improve this section here. So what I want to do actually is go back, and I really like this banner sample. So what I want to do, and one of the reasons I'm going to do this is we saw we can go ahead and drop the image, customize it ourselves, but sometimes as you see an example like this, I'm going to show you how to take code from a sample, a DevExpress sample online, and apply it. So in this case, I'm going to click this. I'm going to click code here, which gives me the ASPX and C# code or VB code. And I'm going to click this open in pop-up window. And this gives me all the markup. Now in the markup here, I see there's a style, and I see here's the image slider. So the first thing to do, I'm going to grab this image slider and bring that in. So the very first thing is I'll replace this image slider with this one. Now, if you're a stickler for good code, what I recommend in Visual Studio, there's a property, I believe it's under Edit, Advanced, or Outlining. It's under one of these, but basically if you hold down Control and hit K and D, it will reformat this code and properly align it for you. So now in this case, we want to be careful because I do like that sample, but I want to make sure that it's going to work for me. Now, I do know that this demo is the same demo, so I'm going to be linking to the right images, but what's more important is I want to make sure that this bit is also proper. So I'm okay with the name. It's running on the server. I've set a client instance name. Now, I'm going to cover the client-side API in just a little bit. But more importantly, I've set up some particular themes, which is I've got a particular width and height, and I've got I've set the navigate URL format string to a JavaScript void, which basically means show a URL but don't have it go anywhere. And finally, we've set off a couple of other properties for encoding HTML and SEO friendly. More importantly, we've got 5 items here, and that's exactly the same amount that I'm going to want. Now, if I didn't want any, I can select this item and remove it, or I can do as I showed you earlier, which is I can select this item, bring the smart tag up, click items, and modify it there as well. So what we're going to do is actually take a look. Now I want to bring up a couple other things. Is we've set up the navigation bar to dots, which means it's not going to show the thumbnail preview. And we've set a couple of properties for the image area. So let me just take a quick look at this. Now before I do, let me remove that bit of information about the versioning. All right, now let's take a look at this in action. Okay, so now here's our exact same. Now, as you can see, this is the exact style that I want. But you're asking yourself, well, it doesn't look exactly like the banner sample. For example, these ellipses are not over here. This overlay should be a little box up here. So what's going on? Well, what's going on is there's a certain set of styles that we need. So this set of styles here has already set up for me a little box area that's up on the top left-hand side. And it's also set up some things like font sizes and padding. So what I want to do is I can bring this style in directly and place it in to the head section. Now, you can simply go here and paste this in just like this. And as we'll see, that will help solve the problem. But that's not really good form in terms of showing, in terms of setting a style. What you want to do with your styles is you want to actually have them out in a separate file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly make a folder called styles and drop it in there. So I'm going to add a new folder, call it styles, and what I'll do is I'll bring in a little file called Image Slider Style Sheet, which has those exact styles that I just mentioned. And so this is the exact same set. Now, the only difference is I've changed the padding on it. So you know what? Just to I'll walk you through it. Let's keep it exactly the same. So here, I've got this style sheet. Now, how do you reference it in here? Well, what's great in Visual Studio is I can just drag the link here, and it'll generate the link for me. So now, I'll run this again. And now I've got the same exact thing, but now I've got good form because I've separated out that style sheet and I'm just linking to it. Now in the style sheet, one bit of information which we'll want to change a little bit later on is the placement of that box. Okay. Now, the key thing about images is that about an image hero graphic is the actual image. What you want to do, and what you notice in each one of these images, here we've got a friendly smile. Here we've got a very nice swimming pose. Here we've got a beautiful keyboard with fingers on it. So these are all engaging images, and that's what you really want to do. When you pick images, you want to make sure they draw visually the focus and attention to it. Now, if you're not designers, that's okay. Don't worry. It's actually not too difficult because you know your site best. You know what the best image is for your application or for your report or for your infographic that you want to present. So in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to present these demos. So let's bring up these demos and grab some images from them. So when I bring up these demos, what I want to do is, first of all, I want to bring up the most visually stunning image from each one of them. So what I'll do is I'll bring up a particular demo that I think looks good. So let's say, for example, this is kind of interesting because it's presenting a set of visual images, and it also shows the story that this is a web-based file manager. Now, if you've never used, if you ever try to use a file manager on the web, you know it's not really easy. And this really brings home that metaphor that this is very file explorer-like. I've got the capability, so I've got a tree view with folders listed. I've got files listed. I can see different types of files, from images to videos to documents and so forth. And this control has capabilities to upload and download and all sorts of things with the file manager. And I want to present that by using one image. And I believe this is a good image. Now, I can also just use the standard, anything that really shows that item. So I'll select this one because I've got a filter box. I've got these icons that light up depending on what I choose. So using a good tool. Now, I'm just using the built-in sniping tool from Windows. This is already available in Windows 7 and Windows 8. but you might want to use something more powerful like Snagit or any tool out there. There's a lot of great tools out there. So I'm going to select New, and I'll just grab. Now, this tool doesn't really give me a whole lot of options for sizing, so I don't know how big this item is. So for example, I'll grab this image, and then I'll start saving this image out. But what's really key here is after you grab each one of the images that you want to display, so for example, on here I want to grab this image. From here, I'm fine with this image. On here, I'll fine with this image as well. But what's key here is I want to make sure that each one of those items is of the proper size. So what I've done is I've went ahead and I've got a set of images already in my a set of images that I've taken care. Now, you don't want to see me sitting here making sure I've got the right exact size of each image, but that's all I did was I just made sure they were all approximately 800 by 300 to fit in that image area. So in this case, our image slider is of size 800 by 313, and so I've got some images that I want to bring in here. Okay, so what I want to do is put them in a folder called Images. So let's do that. Okay, so I've got these images. Now the only difference is, and I want to show you from the, I'll bring up the details pane here, is when I select this, these are all 851 by 325. And that's the only thing that I did was I took the images, but then I brought up something like Paint or Paint.net, and I said just resize them. So I would say that, you know, if there's anything you want to do is make sure that you've got right size images and that you've got rid of things like borders and so forth. Now if you're not very good at this, don't worry. You can always enlist the help of a designer or ask you know, your marketing team. They can help you with that stuff. Now, for myself, I actually did this myself, and I am not, let's say, a designer by any stretch of the means. You know, I'm interested in that stuff, but I can't claim that I'm actually an expert in that stuff. So, you know, if I can do it, I just want to encourage you that you can do the same thing as well. Just grab some images, make sure they're of the same size, and once you put them in that control, you'll actually see they're quite easy. Now the next thing is, like I said, I want to bring it in this folder. So what I'll do is I'll create a new, add a new folder in here. I'll call it Images, and just drop those items in here. So now I've got these images. Now, right now, this is pointing to a wrong set of images, which is not what I want. So what I want to do is I want to point to Images folder that I just added here, and add the point to the particular item. So in this case, the first thing is I want the main image, which is the image that we had, but we replaced. So now, if I do this, let's take a quick look at this in action. Okay, so now I've got the right image, but you see I don't quite have the right dimensions because I'm still showing some black lines and so forth. But what's great is I'm now more encouraged because easily I've just taken some images, I've dropped Image Slider, and instantly I have almost semi-dynamic way of presenting that data. So next thing what I want to do is just kind of set the text here. So rather than take you through a lot of this, what I'll do is I'm going to excuse me. And I'm going to make this a little bit easier by not taking you. So essentially what you want to do is then, for example, this will be the main image. So here you might want to say something like ASP.NET Navigation Suite. And then give it some descriptive text like, you know, set of visual controls and so forth, right? So here it'll say set of visual navigation controls, etc. And then just set a URL for it. So in this case, if you have an external URL, you can put in something like http devexpress.com and something like ASP, which will lead them to the ASP.NET suite. So in my case, I actually have all of this pre-set up for each of the images to save us some time. All right, So let me bring that in. So what I'm going to do is I'll replace the specific image slider here with this one. Now the only difference is I've set a certain width and height that matches my images. I've got pointing it to the right images, and all I've done is set up the text for it as well as the URLs. So these URLs, so some of these demos are already linking in locally. So for the local ones, I'm just pointing to folders and pages in the demo. But if there's an external link, I've got an external link already set up. So if people want to learn more, for example, about ASP Experience, we have a specific link that we like to use for that. So as I said, that's the only thing I've got set up here. So now let's take a look at this in action. Okay, so this is much more to my liking. Now I've got a set of images that I've already got set up nicely. So next thing what I want to do is, and I've got my text. Now if I click on the link as well, I want to just make sure the link takes me to where I want to go, and it does. So what I want to do next is, this is kind of in the way. So instead of having it on the left, I want to put it on the right. So let's just take a quick look at how we can achieve that. So if we go back to our CSS under Styles, I'm just going to change this property here on the left. Now you say, well, how do you know that, Mehul? I mean, are you a CSS expert? I am not. And this is part of what I want to encourage you with, right? Play around with this stuff. And, you know, because development is fun, we can really kind of just take a look at some of this stuff and say, oh, so that's how that works. So for example, if I want to see what this item is, I can right-click and I can select Inspect Element. And like I said, all of the browsers nowadays are so good at this that it just makes your life a lot easier. So now, as I scroll up on this, I see that this is the DXIX item text area. Now, if I move over from there, I'll select this item, and I move over here, I can see the CSS rules for it. And I can see, and what's great about a lot of these developer tools is I can even modify this in place. So if I want to see, like, hey, if I change this left property, what happens? If I change it from 16 to 60, whoa, look at that. That thing is moving over. If I'm changing to 260, wow, look at that. If I change it to 560, it's a little too far. Let's try 520. A little too far still. Okay, 510 is perfect. So that's a one way of quickly figuring out how something might work for you. And then I can say, well, oh yeah, you know what? That's actually not so bad. I'm happy with that. So we can do that very easily right from the browser, and then come back here and make our change. So I've done that. And now what I want to do is, let's go back to our site master. And make sure we've got excuse me. Now let's take a look at this in action again. Okay, so now I've got it over on the right-hand side, which I'm happy with, as well as I've got the images that I've got all set up nicely as well. All right, so that's great. Now what I want to do is and because I've got this and they're all going to the right area, I can remove this set of navigational items because they're already built in here. So let's remove this bit here. Now, I can do that easily. By just going back to that intro banner area. So I'll go intro. And here's our image slider. And I see here's the featured demos. And here's the highlighted area. So if I minimize this, what I'll do, I'll simply remove these two items. And let's take a quick look at this now. All right, now that is great. It's perfect. I've removed those extra items that I don't need, and I've got this beautiful banner. It's exactly sized right, and each of those images is engaging. I've got the text, I've got the links in there. It's all very nice. So the only thing it is not, though, it is not dynamic. So what I want to do here is I want to make this dynamic. So how do we do that? Well, here we can go back to our image slider demo again, and I'll look at the client-side functionality. Now this, if I just let it sit for 5 seconds, what happens is, as it mentions down here, every 5 seconds this image will auto-rotate. Or I can use this built-in controls where I can pause it, move it myself forward, backwards, or I can use my finger or mouse to move through it. And the way we achieve this is we actually use a non-visual control that's in this suite. It's called the timer control, ASPX timer, which has essentially it's a server-side control that lets you do a lot of client-side functionality, and it's a great little control. And so how do we use it? Well, let's take a look at the code. Pop this open again. So in this version, we can see that there's a lot going on. So first of all, there appears to be some script, a lot of JavaScript happening, which we'll take a look at in a minute. We have the image slider, but then we have this menu. So what is that about? Why is there a menu? And why, when really all we need is a timer? Excuse me. So what's really happening here is that the menu is being used for those little buttons. So the menu is being laid on top to provide buttons like preview, next, slideshow. And the reason we did this is we wanted to show you the versatility and the power of the client-side capabilities of these DevExpress ASP.NET controls. You can do a ton of things with them. And they have all these great client-side events like item click. What do you want to do when the item is clicked? What do you want to do when the timer's tick event goes off or when it first initializes? These are all available to you. Now, how do you learn about them? Well, let me show you. So let's say you've got the image slider. So the image slider is called the ASPX Image Slider. Now, any DevExpress control like ASPX Image Slider or ASPX Grid View or ASPX Menu, they all start with the ASPX. You can easily learn more about them by going to help.devexpress.com or documentation.devexpress.com. Both of them link to the same online documentation. So what I typically recommend is if you go and just put in and go to the search and put in ASPX Image Slider, and if you hit search, you will find all sorts of great information about the actual image slider. So, and if you want to learn about the client side, what I say is after ASPX, if you just put in the word client, what you'll find is it will bring up information. Now, this is the server-side control, and its corresponding client-side object model is represented by this naming scheme, which is ASPX Client Image Slider. So the same thing happens for ASPX Client Grid View, ASPX Client Chart, etc., etc. So if we do a search on this, we will find the information for the client-side object model. So now, if I click on this, I can see, this is the client-side equivalent of the image slider object. It's in this image slider scripts assembly, and it's got, here's the type of things I can do with it. I can get and set active item, I can get the index, etc., etc. Now, if I want to learn more about it, I'll look at all the members of it. And here, as you can tell from my MSDN style documentation, is the set of public methods. I can adjust controls, I can cast it, I can set focus on it. And here are some things that I really want. I want to get the active item and the index for it so I can affect that image slider myself. And here's the public events for it, item click and initialize, and you can learn exactly more about these. So it's a great way to learn about this. Now, in general, if you want to learn more about the client side for DevExpress ASP.NET, just go to help.devexpress.com, and then under ASP.NET, there's a great set of topics. So click on Common Concepts, and there's all sorts of great things you can learn about deployment, localization, sprite images, and so forth. But if you click on particularly the client-side functionality of DevExpress controls, you will be presented with a whole set of different items, including the functionality overview, events, how do you pass values from the client side to the server. It's a great topic. And we even provide IntelliSense for all of our client-side API. So if we take a look at this topic, there's a file that we provide with all of our products, for all of our client-side products called ASPX Script IntelliSense. But because you don't want to just include this in your project because it is a big file and it's only useful at design time, we even give you this little bit of code that says, hey, make sure this file is only loaded if you're in design mode. Otherwise, it will ignore this file. It won't deploy it. So it's some very interesting topics that you can learn about by just going to our help file. Okay, enough of that. So now let's go back and take a look at that client-side code we were just talking about. What I want to do is I need a timer. So I'm going to grab this little timer. Now, I'm going to put this timer right above. You could be above or below, but for me, I'm just going to put it above. And I'll hit Control-K and Control-D again. And Visual Studio will assume it for me. But like I said, pasting code from the internet can be very dangerous, so be careful. And it's also important we learn what each of these properties are. So in this case, I'm okay with the ID of it. It just says Slideshow. Now this interval, it is in milliseconds, so 5,000 equals 5 seconds. So I'm going to cut that down to 2 seconds. And it's actually not enabled, so I'm going to enable it. The reason it wasn't enabled on that other demo is because the menu is used to pause and restart it. But in our case, I'm only going to use the timer, so I want to make sure the timer is activated as soon as the page is loaded. And there is the client instance name. So what is a client instance name? I've got to set here and I've got to set here. The client instance name defines the name of the client-side object model. So when I'm referring to this from the client side, I can call it. So on the server side, we use this ID. But on the client side, you would use the client instance name. Now, there are two client-side events. One is called do slideshow, the other is called do autoplay. Now, how do you set this? I mean, if you didn't know how to do this. Now, if you go back to the designer, you can click on the designer and you can select this smart tag. And from the smart tag, if you click client-side events, you can also get at this item. Now, I don't actually want to do anything when I first initialize it, so I'm going to remove that. But when the tick event goes up, which means that whenever 2 seconds elapses, that's a tick. Whenever the interval elapses, that's a tick. So in our case, we want to do something called do slideshow, which means go to the next item, which we'll define in just a second. Now, you might say, you know, Mehul, that's great that you can paste from the internet, but you know, what if I want to drag and drop this control from the toolbox? Well, you can find it under DX components. Now, why is it under these components? Because these are non-visual controls. These provide a set of functionality. For example, the spell checker, very powerful, integrates with not just our HTML editor, but really anything. Anything, if you have a text box, if you have your own memo control, whatever you want to hook it up to, you can define your own spelling libraries, etc., etc. And so all of these, callbacks, hidden field, and the timer is one of them. So you can grab this timer, drop it on here. In my case, since I've already have it, I don't need it. But that's how you get at it. So right now, this is a non-visual control. It doesn't really do anything. But it says, hey, whenever there's a tick, do a slideshow. But we haven't defined that. So let's go back to our online code and see what they were doing in this demo. So do slideshow is right here. Now what's going on in do slideshow? Well, it's creating a variable called index, and it looks like it's getting the active index and then incrementing it. Okay, so why would they do that? Well, it's a slideshow. It needs to move on. So it says, okay, whatever, grab the active index and then I want to add one to it. But what happens if you reach the end? Well, that's what this little bit code says. It says, look, if the index is greater than the amount of items that are in the image slider, reset it back to 0. Go back to the beginning. And then finally, we actually take the action, which is set the active item index to that value. So that's exactly what I want to do. And as you remember, this image slider references that client instance name. So I'm just going to grab this little bit of code here. Now, the easiest way you can do this is we can simply just create a little JavaScript block here that says script, and then you can set the type equal to JavaScript, etc., you know, and paste this in here. And as we'll see, that's not bad form. In fact, let's just run this real quick. Okay, now we're just going to let this sit here, and then we can see every 2 seconds this thing is auto-incrementing itself, right? And as we get to the end, what's going to happen? It's going to go back to the beginning. We have a dynamic way we removed those items, and if somebody wanted, now you may want to use a longer interval here, but just within a matter of minutes, you can easily convert by using our image slider to grab some images, and provide text as well as links. It's a very powerful control, and as you saw, we just did it in a matter of seconds. So, but I want to point out one last thing, which is just like we did with the style, it's not really good form to put this in line here. What I want to do is I want to make sure I put it in scripts. So I'm going to take a look, and it looks like there's already a scripts folder where I've got some code that's already being used in this demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna I've got a little file that I put that little code into, and I'm gonna just bring that in. It's called the image banner timer, and it's just that little do slideshow method. So now what I can do is I can drag and bring that script in just like that. So now we've got a very clean and functional way that we just added our little bit of code to, and it just auto updates itself. So let's go back here, and what I want to do is now take a little bit of time just to quickly recap what we did. We took an ASP.image slider, which is a new ASP.NET control, which provides a lot of great client-side functionality, and we replaced a static image. And instead, in its place, we added something that mimics a hero graphic. It's not mimics, it is a hero graphic. And a hero graphic is great because it synthesizes a message to your audience, helps you deliver dynamic content. And instead of having flat content that's long on the page and that's not visually engaging, you know, the hero graphic says, visitor, please stay, take a look at this, experience this. And the ASP.NET Image Slider helps you do that in a matter of minutes. Now, using DevExpress ASP.NET controls provides you lots of benefits like saving time, which is really equal to saving money. And if you're not familiar with us, here's just some comments from users out there that say things like, you know, it's quite simply a stunning collection of components. The controls are first class and matched by the excellent support. We even have a great set of MVC controls as well, MVC extensions. So if you are an existing DevExpress customer, I recommend you go to this site. It's called dxpr.es. It's a little short URL that we grabbed, /ASP review. Leave us your thoughts. You know, I'm the web product manager. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think about DevExpress. I want to make sure it gets better. And I highly appreciate any and all feedback. I love feedback of any kind. So please, please, please drop by that URL and let us know. I thank you very much for joining today. And if you want to hang around, I'm happy to answer any questions, and let's go through them. So Amanda, do we have any questions?
Yes, Mehul, we have a question from Kevin. How well do these controls work for mobile sites or apps?
Great question, Kevin. That's actually high on our list. Now I'll bring up the DevExpress website, and I want to show you particularly two demos. I didn't show too much of the product demos, but we made two particular demos. Last year, we started supporting Touch for all of the DevExpress ASP.NET products on iOS and Android 3.0 and above. And just in this last release, we support Touch on IE10, which means we support Touch on Windows 8, the new Windows 8 devices, you know, Windows RT and the upcoming Windows Pro. So DevExpress is touch friendly on all of the major platforms. And to really experience it, if you, let's say, have an iPad, go to DevExpress.com and, you know, go to browse to this demo and open up this demo. Now in the browser, it's going to show this version. So let me make it a little full screen so it looks a little better. We're going to have this Chrome, but if you run this on your iPad, you won't see it without this Chrome. Now why did we do this? Because we want you to experience how good this is. This is an ASP.NET demo. Now whenever I'm at a conference and I show a customer this, they say they're amazed, they're blown away by the fact that this is a server-side website. And look at this. This is smooth. And if you do this with your finger, you'll be so amazed. You will say, I can't imagine this is not an app. And the reason we wanted to do this is that we want to tell you that, hey, listen, you have a lot of choices out there for developing. You may want to try native. You want to, try something like HTML5. Well, we have a library for that. But if you're comfortable with ASP.NET, you can use DevExpress. Now, this is our docking suite. This is our grid control in the docking suite. This is our chart. And these are all, like I said, created. Now, the full source code for this sample is available locally for you as well. So we absolutely support touch, and we're even supporting gestures now. So we support the swipe gesture on a lot of our products, like our grid view and so forth. So if you're really interested in this, take a look at some of the past webinars. Let me just bring that up. If you go to devexpress.com/webinars, you see the most recent ones. But if you click on most recent first years, this will give you a list of all the past webinars. And the last one that I did about this is here, how to create multi-channel solutions. I'm sorry, not that one with DXtreme. It was this one, Take a Tour 12.2 ASP.NET. This one, I go over all the better tablet support that we have, all the new controls, the new Visual Studio integration features that we have. Take a look here, and you will see, here's the YouTube video, which you can just play in your browser right here. Or if you don't want to, click this in a separate window and, save it for later, watch it on your commute, or watch it at home at your leisure. So this goes over very well and in detail all the different things we have for mobile support.
Great. From Paul, the folder with the 70 small images seems to take a long time to render the photos. Any pointers on performance?
The folder with, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
With the 70 small images.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to take a long time to render photos. No thumbnails in use, just dots. Any points?
Great. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Great question, Paul. Yes. Okay, so one way to get performance out of the image slider, as I mentioned, the image slider is great because if I just go, let's go back here, if I just say the main demo here, features, in this version, only thing I'm pointing to is a set of local files. Now, these local files don't have any thumbnails. So what does the image slider says? The image slider says, okay, that's fine. I'm going to create these for you. But if I have a lot of images, that's a lot of work. Now, the image slider, it can work as fast as it wants, but really the best way to get performance out of it is, if you have a lot of images, don't make it do thumbnails. Generate your own thumbnails and point to them, and you will get much better performance out of the image slider. So, like I said, the image slider is very nice. It's very convenient. But if I was, if I was going to be using it myself, I would generate my own thumbnails because I always like to get the most optimal performance. But if I only have 3 or 4 images, I'll just let it generate the thumbnails by itself. So, if you have a certain set of images and if you find that it's not working as optimally for you, please just generate the thumbnails and you'll find that it's much faster.
Perfect. That is all the questions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, and I'll make this code available on my blog, which I will show you at devexpress.com/Mehul. And you can also find it by if you go to the DevExpress website under Support Technical Blogs, and this is all the blogs, and there's always all sorts of great content on this website. So we've got everything from the reports to our XAF products. And on my particular blog, like I said, you can see all this different stuff. I will post this project that we just went through. Now, I'll end this webinar by simply saying, if you are a DevExpress customer or if you're not, grab the latest release. Each release, we put a ton of work into it. For example, in this latest release, we've got this new theme, which it takes a lot of bit of work. So as I talked a little bit about, just the images and so forth today, imagine when we create a theme, we spend time crafting it with the designers, the professional themes. Then we take hours and hours to make sure it works properly on all the different browsers because we're very proud of our cross-browser functionality. So please download the latest version, try it out. That's me, Mehul Harry, and you can reach me at devexpress.com/Mehul. Drop a comment, shoot me an email about your thoughts or questions or concerns. And thank you. So, thank you, Amanda.
Awesome. Thanks, Mehul. Like Mehul mentioned, if you haven't already, while you're visiting our site, you can give Universal 12.2 a spin and download the free 30-day trial at devexpress.com/trial. You can also visit devexpress.com/webinars for our upcoming webinar sessions. All right. Thanks again to Mehul Harry. Thank you to Code Project for hosting us. And of course, thank you all for joining us. Let's see what develops. Bye-bye.